All right, perfect.
Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the jar.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mental Health Today. I'm your host, Ken Stearns, and it's kind of recording on a Thursday afternoon here in California. I'm taking a short break from recording the show you just saw, which is The Jar, traveling across the country and meeting 444 people in their homes, hearing their stories. And I've got about 320 of those done. But way before that, as I traveled across the U.S. and met people, heard their stories, the underlying theme, that common thread that was out throughout was mental health. And I was really taken by surprise. So that upon reflection of kind of, what am I going to do with that information or that idea? And, boy, this was born. So Mental Health Today was kind of started for me to, better understand what people are doing in this space. And not just, I've got quite a few therapists on and talking about talk therapy, but also it's beyond that. What else are people doing? And it's like that kind of that unique twist of how you end up in mental health space. Funniest part, and we're going to hear this from Taylan, is how we all end up here for a reason. And it's kind of strange. And it becomes kind of a passion for people. And so Taylan, welcome to the show. I guess we'll cross at some point how we met, because it's a little odd for you and I to be on the same channel. Thanks so much for coming on the show, and thanks so much for being willing to come on and share.
Oh, great. No, I love participating in these kinds of things. I'm still fairly new to the space as well, so it's good to have these chats with
Yes.
you and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Barely do. So I had this crazy idea a while ago, was to take the Mental Health Today show, to take this kind of format and bring it live to conferences, and especially obviously conferences mostly about mental health. And the first one I pitched was the future of mental health, and that was going to be up in San Francisco, and that's where we met. And that was how I ended up there. How did you end up there?
Yeah, so I've been working with my organization, AIM Youth Mental Health, for I would say about a year and a half before then. It's first started
Okay.
off, I founded off our school bulletin as like a volunteering thing. But, over time I got, more into it, and I took on a few more roles in terms of like designing presentations and surveys. And Future of Mental Health Care West reached out to AIM and said that they wanted to kind of do
Okay.
a specialized presentation on male teen mental health.
Hmm.
And so, you know, our program director, Jenny Liang, then picked me and my speaking partner, Banyan Wenzel, and we went and presented about it in San Francisco. And it was fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
you saw the audience just really melt, right, with their story, because it's this is all they do. It's all the professionals, and I think to hear the youth story was pretty impactful.
yeah, it's definitely a new dimension that can kind of be easily left out of some things because, you know, youth aren't really as experienced and they don't have these kind of positions. The conference, there was
Hmm.
presidents and CEOs and founders and stuff like that. And so just having, mental health ambassadors, just two teens just kind of come up. It was very different, but I think it was hopefully refreshing to a lot of other people.
It's good to see, maybe, not from a, not to represent AIM, but a little bit maybe background on what it is for people listening that may not be familiar with it.
In terms of like my interest in mental health.
Well, oh no, AIM. So
Oh, yes. Sorry. So,
yeah.
AIM Youth Mental Health, it aims to kind of create a better understanding of what's happening with youth mental health climate in certain areas by youth-led surveys. So what they do is push out an application, and they get a bunch of youth on the team to help kind of design and field the surveys to get more information. Um,
Okay, interesting. And so you joined in to see what you could do on male mental health.
I originally joined in just as a kind of umbrella of mental health,
Yeah,
but
yeah, okay.
yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of how I joined. I didn't expect to get this far with this field.
Yeah. Especially like you said, when you if you keep going on this and then you get the invite and it kind of feels like it starts to expand. What's happening what kind of connections did you make there, and what's what? Not that you can spoil all the beans, spill the beans, or spoil the secrets. What's kind of happening post conference with you?
Yeah, so I think kind of being at the conference really helped get not just like my name out there as I previously discussed, but just AIM as a
Yeah,
whole.
yeah.
And as of right now, AIM is in kind of a, I wouldn't say rebuilding stage, but we're definitely trying new things. And
Mm.
so one of those things is branching out with collaborations with other organizations. And so we had a few organizations reach out, from things just like youth mental health to an investment company, and just kind of figuring out what AIM can do, because it's almost a sort of
Mm.
title to hold to say that I work with an organization that is run for youth mental health by youth. And so
Absolutely.
that kind of helps. um how do I, what's the word, I'm just not.
Yeah, there's some validation there. I don't know what the word is either, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely, it rings very true. You're going to get the real pulse, and I think this is one of the hard things. Is understanding really where different groups are at. On the mental health spectrum. I was surprised at just the breadth of it. That it was really everybody I touched, and it didn't matter of age or socioeconomic status, and some of the triggers, these air quote kind of the triggers that give people episode, like real difficult moments in their life, could be all kinds of things, human interactions, medical, other kinds of emotional stuff, and then obviously traumas, right? A lot of the traumas that you see, rough stories go through the jar, a lot of traumatic experience. But what people do with that is the impressive part of the story. I think when you look back, so it's the older and the younger version of mental health, right? And it's that we're in the moment, and we don't have that at life experience. And then as you get older and you're looking back, well, I guess there's also less F's to give theoretically, right? So there is some of that, but it is also that at some point you kind of become comfortable in your own skin. And I think that kind of helps a lot, compared to what, growing up youth wise. How about how bad was COVID, and what's the impacts, for your generation, really? I mean, it's a generational thing, right? I think we damaged kids really badly. We poorly handled it.
That's a great question. I honestly don't think it's asked enough. But it's really interesting. Before I joined AIM, there was already a group in place during the time of COVID, and you can
Okay.
actually see, the changes between pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID, and it really did have an effect on youth, because whether we like it or not, and we are social animals, and
Yeah.
whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, you need to see people, you need to interact with people,
Mhm.
you need to be in daily life. And so just kind of being shut in, especially like during these developmental years where so much is happening in life, and just being cut off from all of that, it's different. So I know it definitely affected me, and like my peers that are here
Yeah.
watching the stream right now.
Yeah.
We just kind of struggled to stay into contact. We did, we had video games, of course, and calls and FaceTimes. But taking out that in-person aspect is so just rough to kind of experience, because it's very isolating.
It's super isolating. And like you said, when you're trying to form a lot of relationships, you talked about the kind of the before and after. How is it possible to kind of reset? Because I think one of the things that I'm kind of like looking off and form the question, you fall out of this cycle where you really are enjoying human, and you're kind of that, like you said, we're human beings, and we need other humans, right? We're social beings. Are you able to get that rhythm back, or is it really kind of something that's a piece that's missing? Do you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, wait 1 second.
Yeah. I thought I saw not somebody knocking, or I thought I heard somebody knocking. Okay, we're having just a slight moment. Okay.
So sorry, my little brothers were knocking at the door and kind of asking
Yeah,
to hang out with me.
yeah, I
uh,
heard the knocking, and I thought you might not hear it. Oh,
I'm
I
sorry,
love.
could you please repeat what you had asked?
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, it took me a million minutes to get the question down, so it's a good chance to come back and actually ask it more articulately. You're in a certain rhythm, and you're in a growth phase, and your social cadence and growth goes a certain way, and you're in that, and all of a sudden it's disrupted. and you're inserted, your social life and your development is you're reinserted on this timeline of maturity and age. And there's this piece that's gone. Is it kind of gone? Is that development part gone forever? Do you feel, is it like a missing chunk, or do you feel it's like something we're kind of, it'll eventually look back and it's, wasn't that bad?
I think it'll definitely affect us for the rest of our lives. I think, for some people that might be really noticeable, but for some people it might not be. But there's kind of no taking away from the fact that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think that we're strong. I think that we can definitely take hits and get back up. And whether we like it or not, it's over, and we kind of have to reintegrate. And so,
Yeah. Yes.
while I believe that it definitely has done harm, possibly permanent harm,
Mm-hmm.
it's possible to bounce back from it. And I think in the end, it's just a hiccup in the road. And even though it's a pretty darn big hiccup, it's something
Darn big
that we're
hiccup.
gonna have to live with. But yeah, if that answers your question.
Absolutely. Let me use a kind of a hard word, but it's like a violation, right? In a way, we
Mhm.
were violated. And you guys, I think, as a collective, not for you speaking for yourself, maybe personally, but what you've just the feel, right? A general feeling. Is it a violation? What did we lose, or what did we take away? Was it that social right or the individual right? Um, because it's time. We have time since the moment, right? We have a way time to reflect now. And we look back. What is your kind of gut reaction to that?
I think, as much as a lot of people really dislike and despise school, I think it definitely is very important for the social aspect.
Absolutely.
And so I think that really cannot be. Let's see. I have an example. Could be my youngest brother. Um, he has a
Mm.
lot of speaking difficulties, and that definitely was not helped by the fact that he had to
Oh,
be isolated. And
absolutely.
I kind of bring it up that with my age group, when we were taken out because of COVID, it was the year between middle school and high school. And so having to come right back into high school and acclimate to that
Sophomore year.
exactly into we're at the very end of freshman
Holy
year.
banana! No,
But yeah,
that's
so it's an entire new environment with like entire new environment. It could be either with like social status or academics. Everything is different.
that's like coming out of one aquarium and being absolutely smashed into another aquarium. And when you do that to fish, normally they don't do well.
Hmm.
If you've ever owned fish, you're not supposed to take them out of one environment and throw them in another one. That doesn't end well. It's supposed to be some acclimation. I 100% agree with you. I mean, I will get a lot more extreme on the purpose of school. The
Hmm.
purpose of school is not really, I mean, for some people it'll be a lot of study, but in a large way, it is to teach you how to get out of the house, to establish yourself as a human, to kind of, get through the motions without mom and dad always there, and survive the temptations of partying every night and still show up to school, individual responsibility, get your work done because no one cares. Actually, you find out no one's going to check your homework in the morning. And it's to survive like that. It's all social skills. All of that is social stuff and interacting with humans. So to lock us away and to think you could just mail that in is absurd. I would agree with you. I could see that's also not going to end well.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the early interviews I did on the jar was not early, but it was about a third way through, and it was a couple of young guys who had missed out their first freshman and sophomore year of college, and they missed freshman year and sophomore year, and they found themselves together on junior year, and they were still a little bit shell shocked. Yeah, they were a
Yeah.
little bit shell shocked.
It's we're very social animals again. And so it's really, I don't want to say depressing, but it's just kind of sad to kind of have that part removed and there's no controlling it. Um, but
That's a rough part. Is a lot. I think too. The sense of control is part of life. That's part of the trauma. I'd agree with that. You lose sense of control, and that becomes very tough. And especially when something like that happens. What what advice do you have for other people like yourself? The younger. Kind of ask you a couple questions. We'll go one by one. But the first one would be, what advice do you have for people your age, people kind of in the moment? You may get a little bit of traction somewhere and get a chance to spread the message to people. What are you thinking, and how you kind of have managing stuff now?
No matter what, I think just stick it through, because eventually everything is going to solve itself again. It could take, a few days, a few months, it could even take a few years, but no matter what, everything will return to normal. And
Mhm.
I like saying that, all emotions are temporary. Unfortunately, that means happiness, but fortunately enough, it also means, sadness.
Oh,
And
happiness is for sure temporary. That you cannot maintain that one.
so I think just understanding that while you are in a state of happiness,
Hmm.
kind of really appreciating every moment. And then while you're in a state of a more negative emotion, understanding that eventually you'll come out of it. I think that's an important message that I've personally held for a really long time.
I like that. This, and that's that. This too shall pass,
Yes.
and that's good, and this can be good and bad, right? So this moment shall pass. Um, okay, so I got a I'll give you a spicy one. I'll cue you up. I'll put it up on the T-ball for you though. Um, Are you guys snowflakes? You got let's get straight to it. What's going on? So as a kind of a more of a joke, right? I think that's a kind of a harsh term in some ways. But as a joke and bring it in, this really silly notion in the past of suck it up, right? You'll get over it, it's just that kind of an attitude. And I think that's so unhealthy. And I'm so glad we are moving past that. We're moving past that. And then I think it's kind of a weird it's weird that I think what we would have looked at as defining a snowflake before, now kind of changes. I think, it's at least from my definition of what that would have been. And then after COVID and what people have gone through, and the tenacity, like you said, the strength, right? So what would you say, where are you guys? What's the version? What's the real truth?
Um, I will be completely honest. I think there are some things that, our generation, like my peers, overreact to. There are certain,
Mhm.
things or actions from certain figures that, or, you know, TV shows or games or movies that people will, get angry about and
Mhm.
upset about, which I feel is definitely an overreaction. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, that can also be applied to kind of talking about, mental health. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of goes into the fact that a really big word in this mental health space, as you may know, is stigma. And, whether or not it's socially acceptable to go ahead and reach out for help. And so, in a way, people could be deemed as a snowflake if they're reaching out for help, or if they have,
Yeah. Excellent point, right?
yeah, or have like a therapist or something like that. But on the same hand, like that should not be, you know, shunned. I think people we're growing as a society, and I think that we need to vent out our emotions. And I think if we're upset, we could go get help for that, and we should not be criticized for that. But that definitely is a big issue that I've personally experienced in terms of like,
Still, and
yeah,
even in the youth, or from older people, or the society in general.
we're in a very kind of transformative period where I think kind of the youth of just this generation are the pioneers of destigmatizing, but
Yeah.
definitely, and I think we brought that up in the at future mental health care. Um, with the male teens and such, that it definitely can be looked down upon to ask for help. It seems very, unmanly or like snowflake
Yeah. Yes. No.
adjacent.
Right.
And so
Huh.
there's a lot of conversation there that still needs to be had. But as of right now, I wouldn't go as far as to say that, my generation are snowflakes. I just think that we're trying to figure out first of all that definition, and second of all
Yeah.
ourselves
I
and
don't.
our
I don't
mental
think.
mental
Yeah. Like I said, even the definitions changed. I think for me from whatever started to now. Um, I don't think there's really. I don't even know where you would use it anymore. Um, but I just thought it was a fun, spicy one to bring up. Just
Yeah.
it's such a power word, right? Because you get, like you said, this is everybody can interpret those words with the tone that they want to interpret it. And I think this is a one great thing. I love the do you know Discord? The app Discord?
Yes. Yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of laugh if you look up the definition of Discord. It's a pretty good one. And it's part of discourse, right? And ultimately I think it's Latin, but essentially it means this discussing things you disagree about with other people.
Yeah.
And it's in that dialogue of discourse, much like we have, a bit like here, but we're not in discourse, we're in harmony. But a lot of times, in discussions and discourse of that, in the process of the discussion, you come to some truths about your position and the other person's position. I may not agree with you, but I can understand how you hold the position. There's a lot of value in that. And I think that's just also generally in youth, right? Is, there are certain things that get you excited, and man, passion in youth is, that's a good thing. We don't want to ever quell the passion of youth, right? I mean, I think for me, that's the whole point, is the challenging that fervor underneath that we've got with youth, asking for change and demanding change. But I'm surprised when you said that there's still a lot of stigma even within the young. But you said young men. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, it's still definitely a big problem. And we're in a very, understanding, progressive age, but there's still, it's not like a super widespread thing quite yet. It's getting there, but yeah, there's always that negative force coming against that sort of positive one.
Almost like an animalistic thing still too, right? I
Yeah.
think for the young men thing, it's still just like, if you're not quite super studly at a certain level, then I can crush you and I can take you. There's just some DNA thing going on there that I think is hard to,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to unwind, right? Especially a lot of guys together, because there's a lot of, everybody's in growing up and trying to kind of establish himself. It's all the young lions. So I think there is still this animal part that's going to be hard to kind of totally get rid of.
Yeah, no, I agree. That sort of like masculinity is very primal.
Yeah, it is. It's a very primal thing, right? And so I think, hopefully women are being more nurturing on that side. And, but definitely the masculinity side is going to be a little aggressive if I smell a weakness. And that's hard to smash that out of a billion years of DNA. What's next for you? You're almost your Christmas break. You're about to finishing up. What year are you now?
So I'm a freshman in college.
Okay, so you're a freshman, right?
Yeah.
So how's it been? Holy cow. This is your first 3 months. You're coming at the end. You got finals and everything else. You're doing this silly show. How are you managing? How are you coping?
Well, it's actually not super new to me. I have been doing community college courses for a good few years now.
Okay.
And so I actually graduated high school 1 year early. And so this year has kind of been more so of a gap year in a sense. Not necessarily, I'm not taking a full break, but the classes that I'm taking are of a lighter load. And that's more so I can pursue kind of my own passions and interests, such as this, that I might not be able to when college picks up. And so for right now, there's definitely some studying that needs to be done. I have about a week to turn in a lot of computer science assignments that I kind of got behind on due to like health issues, but and procrastination. But we're getting there. But as of right now, it's pretty chill. I would say it's pretty chill. It could definitely be really stressful, and I think that's another point that was brought up a few times in terms of like youth mental health, is that academics and stuff and teaching and exams, and it could be really, really stressful because it's like, oh my gosh, this could be my future, whether or not I do good on this test, because that's going to show up in my transcript. My transcript is going to go to the colleges and all. And it's snowball, the slippery slope. And so
let your brain your brain, that's such a firecracker. Your brain can go absolutely just rabbit, squirrel, everything.
Yeah, it can definitely just get out of control. But so I'm doing good personally.
Yeah, that's good. And that's good. I think the really big benefit of having all of these dialogues now and getting youth involved and just the whole mental health awareness just expanding, it seems like it's just super expanding. The techniques, being in touch with your body. For sure, I had none of those skill sets. My coping skills was grain alcohol parties at the frat. That was my scope. My coping skills were limited to heavy drinking. And doing some, things that I could probably get arrested for back in the day, or today, back in the day, borderline, but today for sure would put me in some suspect light. And those were things that were allowed, and in some ways it was kind of a release. And I really feel for youth today, because no, that's not really, it's frowned upon. It's kind
Yeah.
of frowned upon, obviously, and the rules are a lot tighter. There's cameras everywhere. Goodness gracious, I'm sure you've heard many boomers talk about, oh my God, if there'd been a camera at campus, I would be in jail, or I wouldn't be vice president for sure. And that's a real thing. And I can't imagine the kind of strange view it is to be filmed all the time, especially in your youth, when you're supposed to do nothing but screw up and make mistakes and learn, hopefully, from the mistakes.
Yeah.
Is it normal for you guys, for the generation with the cameras and the phones?
It's still, I think definitely when you think about it deeper, it's terrifying. But, it's just kind of something that we've had to accept, all these websites you sign up for. Oh, we're going to
Mm,
share your personal data. Sure, I have to sign up for this. I want to sign up for this. And every, button you click, every account you create, it has
right.
potential to be, dug up, and that's attached to you. And so it's definitely scary, I think, but it's kind of left us with no other option but to wise up and make sure that we don't misstep in terms of our digital footstep. I've just kind of accepted the fact that this is just going to be how it is. Like
Yes.
somebody might be taking my location or my personal data and selling it to companies so they can better, fit their user base or something like that. And that's how it has to be. If I took all the precautions to get away from that, we wouldn't really have anything. Our biggest thing, I think, as youth is social media, and social
Yes.
media for posting ourselves and also talking to other people. And to kind of be deprived of that is outside of our reality. In past generations, of course, there was nothing but playing outside, phone calls, no FaceTime, no
Right.
texting. But with the tools that we have today, we want to utilize all of them, and it's very hard to kind of get away from them. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something that hits. Like I kind of realize, I'm like, oh, everything that I do is stored somewhere. And
Yes.
so if I make a big mistake,
Forever.
yeah. So, but I think it's just up to the individual youth or anybody really using social media, the move they make, and whether or not they want to make certain moves, and just to be kind of safe with how they use the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was even alluding to cameras, like as you go to parties, as you go anywhere, there's a camera out, and what you're doing is being recorded. Um, Kind of a total left field question. AI. How, I know how I look at it, excuse me, and how I'm using it for work. And I'm an early adopter on a lot of tech stuff. And certainly I use AI almost daily now. I've integrated part of my life, part of the workflow for producing the shows. But it's very transactional. But it's not lost on me that I'm not so much getting information from AIs. I'm training the robots, right? Every prompt is another lesson, and how to refine the thought, etc. Do you think generally, you maybe just talk about yourself, and you can expand maybe to the group, the larger group. Is it something you're excited about because you feel like you're on the front end of this? Because I'm young, and I am riding this horse, and I'm gonna put the reins on it. Or do you feel like you've lost a chance before AI, and you're kind of getting screwed on this thing, and it's going to swoop in and make life a lot more complicated and harder to navigate, et cetera?
I think personally, we are in a very good time because it hasn't fully developed yet,
Mm,
and it's still developing. But personally, for me, this is a very interesting question because I'm kind of interested in going into that field. That being, cognitive science, computer science, data science, just that whole kind of stuff. I'm really interested
look,
in AI and machine learning,
okay.
and I kind of want to explore that further. But I think a good way to put it is, this. Think about how many hundreds of years ago that the basic knowledge you needed to get a job was like to drive, I don't know, a horse-drawn carriage and just make sure
Yeah,
that that was okay, or to farm. And then as time goes on, few decades ago, it was just kind of learning how to use a computer. And
yeah,
now I think that it's going to develop even further. So now the kind of basic knowledge that you need to get a job is just going to bump up. So maybe that's going to be learning a little bit of programming. Um, and so in that sense, I'm not super terrified. It's definitely a scary thing how fast it's advancing. For
Yeah.
one, because I remember a year ago playing around with some AI stuff, and it just made really like bad image generations. And I'm like, oh, that's
Yes.
kind of funny how it kind of resembles it. Now it's almost perfect, and it's really scary to see how fast it's growing. But at the same time, I I don't think that humanity is going to let itself be destroyed by something that I created. And I firmly believe that we have the
I think.
potential to adapt like we always do. And whether that means we pick up new knowledge in terms of technology or we kind of dampen the implications of AI, I think we'll do it. But
I
it's
like
scary.
it. Yeah, it's scary. I love, like I said, I love using it every day, but still every time it is not lost on me the fact that I'm training it to to kill me, right? To ultimately to kind of replace you. Um, one of the guests that I had on, and we were talking somehow around about AI, and one of the benefits, one of the products that I believe it was their product. It was very cool, but it would be for therapists, and you could take the transcript of your tape with a client and you upload it, and what it would do, it would say, okay, people with a very similar kind of and maybe there's some other notes you put in it, but ultimately it measures your drug prescription with this person and their blood type and this personality and this kind of, and part of what they're reading about the behaviors, and they're matching it to other successful cocktails. So increase, so if you think about, if you've got 250,000 therapists, they all, I mean, no one's helping each other design which drugs to put together, right? And you only see, if you're, good God, unfortunately, if you see 100 different patients a month, God bless you, right? I mean, I don't know how you can serve, like another mental health case in itself, right? You would really need some private time after that. But 100 clients, how do you design the cocktails and how do you remember what the feedback is and everything? And so imagine if you had 10,000 therapists plugging in data into this, and how accurate you could get, very quickly, get the right solution as far as a drug mix for patients. So it's a interesting example of how it's going to work.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like potential negatives, but there's also a lot of potential positives. Like we wouldn't have designed this if it was just for all the bad things that could happen with it. It's gonna help, and we're
Yeah.
gonna figure out how to implement it best, and it's gonna be productive.
And it's evolutionary. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think evolution is sometimes, it's cellular, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's not, it's O's and ones. It
Yeah.
looks like, well, let's just hope the O's and ones don't go
Um,
too far too fast. But hey, we'll always still have the cellular level of construction. Um, what's you talked about your major being, you're interested in the data and data science, very interesting field. What part of that is it, the research part or solving the equation? Are you a math guy, or is it more in the big picture and what the data tells you? What's the part that gets you excited?
I've just been kind of really into the idea of AI. I'm not exactly a full blown proponent of it, but I think it's very interesting to comprehend and to kind of see. And so my interest kind of lies within that field, and hopefully being a pioneer of some development. And that also kind of goes into mental health again, because cognitive science is a branch of computer science, machine learning, data science, and
Hmm.
psychology, mental health, and stuff like that. And so just kind of figuring out how can we use, like you said, like this like technological evolution to help, the cellular, presence already here, just kind of how do we augment our life using this new tool. And so it's still right now, it's mostly just an interest. I haven't really gone full blown into it. Um,
Yeah.
but I've taken, psychology classes, data science classes, computer science classes, and I just kind of want to figure out how I can implement all of that and, still keep that sort of goal of, mental health in mind. Because
I'll try to find it. Yeah. Sorry. Keep going.
no,
Yeah.
because it's, these kind of fields or majors are really different from each other, but they all have, that link, which is kind of technology and the brain and machine learning and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so I don't know exactly how, but I know that I kind of want to utilize all of it to help. I it's just
Really just poke around.
yeah, poke
So,
around.
my advice would just do a lot of weird different things that are unconnected, seemingly unconnected, but have got that thread.
Yes. Yeah.
right? That
Exactly.
you like, right? They all have a, and so it's a bit of a zigzaggy, but you're still on the thread of what your interest is. I will make a point to go back and try to see which episode that was where we're talking about AI. Shouldn't be if I don't do it on the first scan. I won't look too hard because it could get it's a rabbit hole trying to search through 100 episodes to remember which one was the AI guy. And I'm a boomer after all. Another point, I think a great one to wrap up the show with. First off, I want to thank you for your time, Taylan. I really appreciate it.
Of course. No, it's been amazing to be here, and it was really good to meet you. And I'm glad we actually went through with hosting this podcast and whatnot.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, let's just do it. The other part, whoever you're waiting for, forget those people. Let's just go and talk. And we can always bring other people along. Yeah, we can do this again if you want. If you've got an idea for a talk, or you meet somebody you want to kind of highlight, just reach out.
Yeah.
One last, also big thanks out to the audience for listening, and appreciate all your friends that were kind of hanging out, man.
Thank you,
I think
guys.
this is big shout out to all the team. Peace, love, thank you. I don't think we've ever had at least two people stay live the whole time, so we've hit a record as far as that. We do a little bit better on the audio version. So when this wraps up, it'll be live on LinkedIn. It'll be a video there sitting for you. You can share it and enjoy it. I can get you a download if you want to get a download. Shoot me a note on the side. I'll take care of that for you. So you have this frame and this 30 minutes, and you can kind of use it if you'd like, or just hold on to it for prosperity. It'll be a good highlight reel for you on on some of your intro or something. Take that moment when you say something really smart, and you
exactly.
And you could just use that minute. One last point, and then I'll kind of wrap it up, is Moon Knox, which is you'll see it in the description of the Mental Health Today show. It's an artificial intelligence company, and we partnered with them. I'm not the best partner because I'm not always doing my part of the job, but the idea and the beautifulness that we're going towards is take all these transcripts from Mental Health Today and put them into our own proprietary database, kind of a AI warehouse. And all the episodes and the conversations and the topics become searchable. And then we can start to cross-reference different guests or different solutions or different ideas. So if that was if I had, and now I'm going to kind of, smack myself, had I had that up and totally functional right now, which is possible with Moon Knox, I could have typed in AI and RX, and it would have shown us the episode in the exact moment of where it happened.
I see, huh? Yeah. It's definitely a really cool implementation, those kinds of things. It simplifies kind of those harder jobs. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and I just say, if you're interested in meeting those guys, I'm glad to put you in front of them. It's a really interesting, two interesting gentlemen started this company. They came from IBM because IBM couldn't move fast enough, right? It's too late because AI's, right? By the time they got something approved, that idea was already dead. They already had two more ideas. And so they went on their own to move really fast. And Robert Ong is a really great guy and doing a lot of cool stuff. Love to introduce you.
Yeah, I would love to connect. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's because he's not totally mental health, but he's got a couple of mental health projects they're supporting, and then they use this tool for a lot of other commercial stuff as well.
Of course,
let's get them connected. Taylan, thanks, man, so much. I super appreciate you, and you really got. You got a good articulate head, and you're on the right path. Keep going, my friend.
Thank you so much, Ken. It was good to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, everybody, for listening, supporting Mental Health Today, the JAR podcast as well, which is really cool. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks again. See you in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere, Tyler.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, loose, baby.
But we're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals in public glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glass blowing. Yeah, we're going to go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.